Good evening. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about trust. I realize that I have not yet related any stories to you, but there is an issue that we think it important to get out of the way before we truly begin. Trust is not something that is easily earned. Your species in particular is remarkably duplicitous. It only stands to reason, then, that you would greet any apparent display of altruism with skepticism. So, since we're still at the beginning of our journey together, we thought it best to just come right out and address the elephant in the room. If we did not do this, it might be difficult for you to gain all that you could from these monologues. So, we want to address these dual elephants. So, I'd like to tell you two things. One, I want to let you know why we have chosen now to begin this flow of information between us. And two, we want to explain why we have chosen here. Why this channel? It is important that we explain both the method and the moment. So first, why here? The barrier between us, the skeptical barrier, is bolstered by a few things. One, who or what am I? And why should you trust me? Why should you take anything I say seriously? You don't know me. Why would you do that? That is a real concern, but it's a broad concern. You would have these same doubts. You would be dubious regardless of how I appeared to you, whether it was in a dream or a vision or on your television set. There's nothing that we could do to get rid of that aspect of the doubt. We have to accept that as a given and do what we can to work through it. The more specific issue, and the issue that perhaps we could have skirted, theoretically, certainly, is a result of the actual method of delivery. That is, namely, how can you be expected to take anything I say seriously when I share bandwidth with people whose motives are so suspect? Lots of problems are more or less preordained, unavoidable. But this particular problem, it doesn't need to exist. It is not a foregone conclusion that the most popular method of one-way communication on any given world exists predicated on pandering to the lowest common denominator. That's probably a little bit unfair and is selling YouTube short, but not by much. Humankind spends way too much time thriving off a perceived superiority complex, exploiting, laughing, taking hollow comfort in the unfortunate situations of others. So it really kind of makes sense that a community-based broadcast center such as this would reflect the community in which it was created. It is, after all, a mirror of the larger world. It's a microcosm. That said, choosing a vector is not a cut and dried thing to do. It is not as simple as picking the most popular set of social media tools to reach the largest number of people and then just bombard that vector with this information. There's more to it than that. There's subtlety involved. I need to take into account more than just how to reach as many people as possible. That is certainly part of the intent. But part of the intent is retention, absorption. We need to take into account accessibility, language. There are a lot of factors involved. Make no mistake, YouTube presents a lot of challenges. It is far from ideal. But it also has very real strengths. And once the challenges are surmounted, it is without question the most flexible and powerful method of dissemination of information on your planet. It's important that you keep in mind that I am not just talking about now or today. I am talking about a decade from now, 50 years from now. It doesn't take a prophet to predict the exponential growth of this channel. But it doesn't hurt to be precognizant either. So, that's the reason for the method. We'll overcome the hurdles in time, and in the long run, it's the best opportunity for us to both teach and learn. So now, the moment. Why now? The answer to this is linked pretty closely to the first question, namely, at no other time in human history has humanity had access to such widespread dissemination of information. Now, it's certainly worthy of discussion as to whether or not the particular frontier your species is broaching this century will end up being a good or a bad thing. That is a worthy topic of discussion, but it is not the topic of this discussion. No. We're looking for ways to spread the truth. But we are also interested in how that truth spreads. It's a little confusing, I know. Indulge me. We want to spread the truth. We want these ideas to propagate across your planet, and we want your people to learn from them. That's our primary and our ultimate goal. But it is a two-way street. To appropriate another one of your idioms, it is an integral part of this process that we learn from you as well. One of the ways we can do that is by observing how your species reacts to the truth. Wouldn't it be interesting if the message were suppressed completely? And imagine what that could tell us about your species, even though it thwarts our efforts to inform you. What would it say about you if you went so far out of your way, even when this information was available to the majority of the population at the click of a button, if you kept your collective heads in the sand? I've noticed in the course of speaking with you that I'm saying a lot of things that could be perceived as value judgments. I'm going to be mindful of that in the future, but there's no reason for you to be offended. These are not really value judgments of any kind. First and foremost, because I have no values, or at least nothing that you would recognize as values or a value system. When I say it would be interesting if your species rejected the information that we have, I'm not saying this in a snide or a pejorative way. I genuinely mean it. Creatures can sometimes resist knowledge. They frequently have good reasons for doing so. You all may resist this knowledge, and you may think your concerns are valid. You'd be wrong, of course, but if you decide not to accept our gift, you certainly won't believe me when I tell you that you should. So let's call all of this, just an experiment. Don't get me wrong. The ideal scenario for us in this would be for the word to be understood and spread. It can only aid the universe if humanity takes the next step and becomes a more productive member of the cosmic community. That's the outcome we all prefer. It's just common sense to have a plan B. Until next time, students, good night.